Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Here we are on episode 35, and we have a very special project that we're going to be promoting today. We get to revisit our roots with exploring Frederick's underground. We've been asked by the Frederick County Public Library System to put together a special program on January 24th that has the same motivations that led to our original series that actually gave birth to the Seven Arts Archives channel. I have two incredible guests here today. I'm going to ask each one of my guests to please introduce themselves and tell our audience your role in this project.
Thanks, Dawn. Yes, my name is Emily Spangler. I'm an adult services librarian at the Downtown Seaber Arts Library, and my role in this project is that I read the article that focused on your series in 2019 and got inspired by it and reached out to you to make this into a library program where patrons can come and learn about Frederick's underground music scene.
No, that's fantastic.
Thanks, Don and Nick, for having me. My name's Andrew Roff. I have gone by some other aliases, originally Dr. Serendipity in the Voodoo Love Gods, and I also go by the name of Drew Starr for some of my musical productions. And I'm involved with the Voodoo Love Gods, but I've been a big fan of Frederick original underground alternative music scene, since that 80s time frame is kind of when I got exposed to it. And I want to thank Emily also for being here and expunging all of my past due library books that were late. Thanks, Emily.
No problem, Andy. We are fine free now. So happy to do it.
No, that's awesome. As much as we're going to talk about art and music, we're also going to talk about Frederick, Maryland. Frederick was very much part of my life from the late 80s to the early 2000s. For people who don't know who I am, I'm an original founding member of the Blue Elephant Art Center on Fifth Street. I was with them for 5 years, and I've been a fan of the art scene in Frederick, Maryland since the mid-'80s. Let's go ahead and take a look at the event page that you put together, Emily, and talk to our audience about what your vision for this event is, and then we'll pass to Andy as one of the panelists.
Sure. So just as some background for the event and how it came to be, or how I got inspired to ask you if you would be interested in organizing this event. I used to work at the University of Maryland libraries, and there is a DC Punk special collection there where the curator was John Davis, and I knew of that collection. Thought it was really interesting when I worked there, and I thought it was a really cool niche look at a music subgenre and subculture, and it shined a light, I think, on a really prominent, important movement in music in the 80s and in DC. And so when I was thinking of a new series of programs to host at the library in the winter, I thought a music series could be really cool. I didn't really know where to start from there. But I thought about that punk subculture, and my mind went there, and I just kind of, I literally Googled Frederick, Maryland. I didn't really have a history or I didn't know, I wasn't aware of a Frederick punk movement in the 80s at that point, but I figured hopefully it had to exist. And so I just Googled it, and that's when your article came up, and I thought it would make the most sense to reach out to you to see if it could be a panel or a program that local Frederick musicians would be interested in talking about. The event itself, I see it as a way for our patrons to connect with this specific moment in history. I think with historical moments in time, in a place like Frederick, really the only way to keep it alive and keep remembering it is talking about it. And that's mainly what this is. I want to know, and I think the vision I see that the patrons would want to know is, where did the musicians go out to eat? What stores or bars did they frequent? Where did you play music? What bands were you a part of? What was your day-to-day life like? It was probably different than it is now, I imagine. It's a more digital world now. I'm assuming in the 80s, phones weren't as prominent. The internet wasn't around as much.
Phones, yeah.
Yeah, and I want to know, I think, what life was like back then, and that's kind of what spurred on my interest in the program, and hopefully it's what will draw other community members to the program.
No, I think it's great. Is that you, Andy? And get you to
it's not me.
silence your phone. Andy, let's.
My wife.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about we've asked you to be one of the panelists, of course. You have a long history as a musician and as an artist in Frederick. Let's talk about what you're doing now with music, and then I think we'll talk a little bit more about the history. So you're still playing with who right now?
Well, the Voodoo Love Gods are still kicking it about and recording a lot of songs. And I'm working with Brian Sefcik, who's the lead singer, and also he was the lead singer in the Left. So he's one of the founders of the Voodoo Love Gods. So he is really the voodoo daddy of the Voodoo Love Gods, because we've gone through so many members of the band that most of Frederick has been a part of it. So really the Voodoo Love Gods, in a way, is the Frederick music scene. There's been about 20 or 30 people that have been in and out of that band over the course of its life. But we've breathed a little more life into it. I almost feel like a necromancer because we keep bringing the Voodoo Love Gods back from the dead. But we do have a whole batch of new songs, and we're actually shopping them around. We've got maybe a distribution deal in England right now for these new songs, and I'll give a little plug to Hub City Vinyl because they're looking at maybe putting out a record with us here soon. Hub City in Hagerstown is starting a record label, and so if people are out there interested, contact them because they are looking for local regional bands to do vinyl records with.
I love
awesome.
that. Nick, can you go ahead and bring up this was our original flyer from 2019. When we first started the whole channel, when we first started everything, we used the title Exploring Frederick Underground Music and Art Scene. We did 5 dates in Frederick, Maryland in 2019 with the whole idea of trying to resurrect and reunite band members from the 80s. The whole series was incredibly successful, and it was really, Nick, you would agree, it was a pretty magical summer. Yeah. I mean, we all had an incredible, and of course that was, full audience. All the shows were packed, and I really do think that it was great. All of those shows are on our channel. Can you pull that up, Nick? The first 5 years of our our project was recording music. Let's just play a second of the first one with the Voodoo Love Gods. Yeah, please. Yeah, this is from 1989, Andy.
It's 89, Shepherdstown, Eric Reichert, Brian Sefcik, and
Lisa Kirk.
That's Lisa dancing there, yeah. There's Brian, and Greg McGackey is playing the bass over there. And yours truly is back behind the drums.
And Nick, if you don't mind, will you play a clip from the one you recorded? You shot this on your iPhone. This has always been one of my favorites. Yeah, this one. Yeah, anything of this. We did this one in Shepherdstown.
It's the same exact location that the first video was from.
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I think it was like 30 years later, I think we did a show in Shepherdstown. We had the Let There Be Rock School, and it closed out a fantastic year.
That's full circle.
Yeah.
We had a wedding at this thing.
Yeah, that's right. We had a wedding. I forgot about that. We can only encourage everyone to check. I did the light show, goddammit. I don't do stuff like that no more. So
All the members are the same except the bass player. That's Rod playing the bass instead of Greg. But we've had a lot of different members in the band since. That was a great night, Don. You did a
that
good
was
job.
fantastic.
There's actually you can't see the audience there, but there was like a couple hundred people there, and they were dancing and having a great time.
Yeah,
It was
all the
wonderful.
shows in 2019 were packed. After that, after Corona, things have never been the same. So let's spend some time, Andy, and we'll start with our first still of the Voodoo Love Gods. This is still number 1.
Oh, hang on, I gotta get this thing zoomed in. It's being weird.
I gotcha. Andy, I'll ask you. This is How did the Voodoo Love Gods come together? How did you end up getting involved with them? And this is you, Pat Fable, and who else?
Chunk Ruppy is the bass player who is deceased at this point, and that's Brian in the background. That shot was taken by the Frederick News Post, which the library has a copy of this photo, which you should grab for the exhibit because they exhibited it a couple years ago. But it's the back of the Carroll Creek Cafe, which was right next to Griff's. I'm not sure of what those things are now, if it's a popcorn place or something. I don't know. It's down on the Carroll Creek, though. But it was a very small dive bar. You could maybe squeeze 50 or 60 people in there, but the Carroll Creek in 86, 87 was the only place in downtown Frederick that would let local bands play. Original music. That was the other thing, original music. There was very few venues to play in Frederick that would not, they wanted cover bands. That's, and that's still kind of pretty much typical even to this day. But Odie Keller was the owner, and he owned a bunch of properties around, and he let us play there, and paid us a little bit of money too.
Let's take a look at the next Voodoo Love God.
Yeah, so some of these we got Eric is coming in the band. He took over for Chuck when he left, so still around 87. This Professor Bond was a location up in Hagerstown that we moved our practice site to. It was right across from Brian's house, but he was a gypsy who had passed away, and he endowed that property to I think it was just his girlfriend or maybe his wife, but she never used the property for anything, and it had a big garage on it, so she let John Hornick live there on one side of this garage, and we practiced on the other side of the garage, gratuit. So, it was very nice of her.
And we got one more image of the Voodoo Love Gods. Let's talk about this photograph too.
Yeah, it's pretty much like the same era, even the same photo shoot. But it was the Voodoo's 87, 88 time frame after the record came out.
The record, this one is
the 12-inch.
This
LP.
is the and we recreated the photograph. This is actually on Sky Stage. It wasn't Sky Stage at the time that they did the photograph, but when we did the series in 2019, we were able to redo this photograph, which was pretty spectacular.
Oh, wow.
It's right on South Street, and Sky Stage.
And I brought a couple of records. Let me pull out. Shit, god damn it. This one is a compilation. And the thing I want to stress about these musicians is they're still making music 40 years later. And one of my favorite lines, I was doing interviews when we were doing this series. I'd sit down with everyone and do an interview. And Kevin Sefcik, Brian's brother, who was playing with you at the time in the Drive-Ins Beats, all of the musicians all talked about when they didn't play in a band or when they didn't play music as like dark, right? Like that was, so for me, one of the things that I really love about all of these guys is all the musicians that we would talk to and invite. All of them are still playing in bands and still pretty much performing, including Andy McCutcheon, Steve Blickenstaff. I mean, yeah. So, let's go.
That's incredible, and I think it really just I admire that because clearly it's a craft that you all are passionate about, and it's gone through decades and decades of an evolution. So that's really cool.
And not all musicians stayed in the same genre, so that's always been something I've been, there's a lot of experimentation. And I told you in an earlier conversation, like, okay, I'm a Blue Elephant, I'm a visual artist. We had done a special party, I think it was in 2000, I guess that was 2018 or when I cried, like I was bawling, you were there. So we did this big party to recognize the 20th anniversary of the Blue Elephant Art Center at Area 31 in Frederick. It was a really wonderful event, packed, popular. So that was 1998, and I was thinking, well, people love learning about 90s. Let me show you what the 80s were like. So that's what kind of led to the initial series that we had done in 2019. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty amazing town. Let's talk a little bit, Andy, if you don't mind, we'll talk a little bit about the Left. So this was the precursor to the Voodoo Love Gods.
Yeah, the Left.
You want to pull up some of them pictures if you don't mind, Nick?
The Left was, Jim Swope was kind of the musical director of the Left, and Brian Sefcik was the singer. That's Kevin there. That's Kevin. Brian's brother, bass player for the Left, and Bill Sword was the drummer. That band actually...
You can go to the next one, Nick. That's Bill Sword.
Most of those guys were from Middletown, Frederick County, but they did a lot of their practicing and playing and stuff out of Hagerstown. There's Brian there.
With the Left. And
there's Jim Swope.
Now, Jimmy is a good friend of Nick and I and of the channel. We've included Jimmy in pretty much everything we've done. Our highest video, or our highest viewed video, is something we did with Jimmy during The guy with sunglasses is Jimmy with hair. Yeah, so that's the Left.
But the Left was got very big, not so much locally. I mean, they were pretty big locally. They were only in existence for a couple years, and they put out about 2 albums worth of material, but they got famous internationally. I went to France and lived there for a few years in the early 90s, and some of the musicians that I met over there had Left albums and cited the Left as one of their favorite punk rock alternative bands. And I couldn't believe that. I was like, wow, I know these guys. This is Brian. I used to be in the band with them, Right. In fact, I even took records I took some of my records I had of the Left and got them autographed and brought them back to this guy in France, and he was just like tickled pink. But, I was just, just to see that, and for me, that really strikes a chord of that, that your music can transcend where your location is. It can transcend how popular you are locally, It could transcend the fact that you're not getting many rewards or it's hard to get a gig, but bam, over in France or England or Sweden or somewhere else, you might be you might be the Elvis Presley of that moment or something like that. It's just, it's a real phenomena.
Let me ask, Emily, before we bring in our friend Mina into the conversation, your interest in punk, where does that originate from? Why the punk genre? What interested you in Frederick punk genre?
To be honest and transparent, I honestly don't listen to a lot of punk music, but I know. I need to get informed, but I did grow up. My best friend growing up, her parents were really big fans of punk rock music. So I would say that I've been around it for a lot of my childhood, but I honestly have that appreciation for the genre of punk rock just from knowing that what it took probably to play that music at a time where it probably wasn't easy to get off the ground. It sounds like in the 80s it really was just flourishing, but it probably took a lot of sweat and grit to get there. And I think punk is one of the most expressive music genres out there. And I really admire that. So that's where my interest in it lies. And I also admire, again, like we were just talking about, the passion of the musicians. And I think the fact that you all are still, like, this podcast in itself is an expression, I think, of the friendships you've formed from being in this group and being in this culture together over decades.
Yes.
And the fact that a lot of you are still friends, and even though, you know, people leave bands, people come back into bands, you're all just still friends, which is incredible. When we met a couple of weeks ago to take a look at the room, Andy brought his artifacts. And when all of you are about to leave and you said, let's go to WAGs, I think sums it up to me of why I think it's that sense of feeling that you belong to a community. And I want the Frederick community, the wider Frederick community, to learn about it. And that's what I think it ties back to the program and my interest in it. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for my interest in punk.
Well, you know that it's really, there's so many more people. Frederick is huge right now. I'm almost intimidated to drive downtown Frederick. There's so many people. When I came to the library, that parking lot was full, and there was people walking everywhere. But is there a sense of community? I don't know. I don't know. Is there? Because everything's so easy. It seems like back in the 80s, there was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was 12 channels of television, and if you're lucky or affluent, you could get cables. Just started to come online in the 80s, and that's where you could see MTV and stuff like that. But that was just coming out. You could go. There was videos you could go rent and stuff, but you had to go to a movie theater to see a movie, or rent a video a year after the movie came out. So they wouldn't release that stuff until they had played it out in the theaters. But what other artists or musicians would gravitate together in order to create fun activities to do, because there wasn't that much stuff going on. I saw Star Wars 20 times in the early 80s. It was a great movie. I loved it, but there wasn't too much else to see. There wasn't even a lot of choices. It came back like 4 years in a row. Right. But do I want to see that another 20? Probably not. I probably check the Star Wars box. What else do you do? What would you do if you weren't interested in the music that they played on the radio? It was all kind of boring stuff, especially coming out of the 70s. There was a lot of just slag, top 40 pop music that wasn't very interesting. But, when the 70s kicked off, really, that, in New York and out of England came a bunch of, this ruckus, and people were saying whatever they wanted to say and playing music differently, and it was recorded kind of crappy and stuff like that, but it was exciting and dynamic. And a lot of people got inspired and said, hey, well, I could do that kind of stuff, or let's get our buddies together and we'll at least try. But, you spend a lot of time hanging out with your buddies. You spent hours and hours a week of your time working together to try to craft something where you could come and perform and get other people, give them something to do. It was kind of like a community building event to have like a musical group, because you needed a community to come and appreciate it. And there wasn't a lot of places to play. We would play at the soup kitchen that was down on South Street and Market, or the Carroll Creek, or we'd rent Knights of Columbus halls, and our friends would come and see us there, because there just wasn't any, big clubs, or there wasn't a lot of opportunities to go and play places.
Yeah. One of the bands that we want, I guess one of the artists that we wanted to talk about, and it would be really difficult not to. Let me pull these out. All of this artwork, this is Deadly Spawn. This is one of my favorite. This is a compilation album. I'd love for this to be displayed. But all of these, what's that?
She's chatting with me here. Hang on a second. Just keep going.
Yep. All of the personalities that we're talking to, all of the 2019, we reached out to a lot of these musicians. The fact that these crazy records even exist, but this is the artwork of Steve Blick and staff. This is Killers from Space, more artwork by Steve Blick and staff, who's one of our really good friends. And one of the deep conversations we were hoping to have is about this Frederick band called the Skeptics, and this is also an album cover by Steve Blick and staff. I believe that Steve is probably the most famous Frederick artist. His artwork has literally been seen all around the world. He did the Cramps cover, Bad Music for Bad People. And he still plays music. He plays with a band called, well, now they're playing the Atomic Mosquitoes.
Atomic Mosquitoes.
And they just got back from Italy not too long ago.
They've done Italy a couple times, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty incredible. I guess
That's a good.
One of the first groups that I saw was the Skeptics. And I just heard about a party that was happening in Middletown, and went to this party and was partying, and on the back porch of this house, a band started playing. And I just heard this kick drum, boom, 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 and, guitars and the bass and the singing, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And it was the Skeptics. That was one of my first experiences of seeing like a local original underground band. And I was like, this stuff is great. It was really pumping me up. And Steve is still one of my favorite all-time drummers. I like Keith Moon a lot, but Steve is right up there, or used to be. I don't think he plays that much right now, but he would pound the heck out of his kick drum. He had the kick drum tied to like his seat that he sat on in order to keep it from like kicking it away. He would kick it so hard, and he would just pound the heck out of those drums. And at me being a drummer, I was like, in awe, and I was like, yeah, I want to play like this guy. I would really want to beat these drums into the ground when I'm, to express myself or something like that. But just seeing them, and then this is all original music. Those guys wrote this stuff. It was really incredible. The crowd was getting into it, and it was before I knew any of them or really was involved with the scene that much, but it was like just my first, visceral contact with underground music, and it was intense, and it was raw, and it was wild.
With Andy,
I think there's laws against that now or something. I don't know, but I still... That's what I do it for.
It sounds very powerful.
Yeah.
With Andy McCutcheon, can you explain his relationship with Frederick to the audience? Go on and tell Emily exactly who Andy McCutcheon.
Andy McCutcheon, just from my perspective, because he's probably different things to different people, but he hails from the apple barons of Frederick County, and you can find the McCutcheon apple products from the East Coast to the West Coast. I didn't see any in France, but you know what? I bet you they got them over there, because McCutcheon's apple butter travels the world. They probably got it in Japan. I'm not sure, but I did see it when I used to live in California, and I saw Andy McCutcheon's family's products out in Barstow, Arizona, in the middle of the desert. So those apples that they get in there and process
It's far reach.
right by Sky Stage. It's not too far away. Get all over the world. Now Andy didn't really. Now he used to work there. I've seen him. I've talked to him while he was working and stuff a number of times. But he's a teacher out in California, and he followed more of a
still actively
teaching
still actively making
career.
music.
Still actively making music. Sure.
Nice.
I think once it's like I don't play golf. I don't play baseball, sport, whatnot. That's music becomes like I don't know if it's a passion, hobby, but it's like something that when you get a song in your head, you have to give it birth. It's like almost unhealthy not to give it some sort of breathe life into it. When you can, you can.
It almost
I've got
seems
recording
like,
equipment.
Yeah, it almost seems like a gravitational force. Like it would be wrong to, like, if you feel the need to play your instrument or write a song, that has to come out of you in creative expression.
Exactly. It's like an artist, whether it's visual, I think, or musical, or any kind of artist, when you are given inspiration from the muses, from God, from the universe, however you want to frame that, you can't keep it to yourself. I think it's detrimental to keep it to yourself. And there's a lot of people that probably just do, and maybe they've given up some kind of way, but it's very, even if it doesn't get heard by anybody, even if it doesn't make it on the charts, which none of it really ever does, you still are almost obligated to pass and create this thing, whether it's a painting or a song, out into the public domain. It's almost like, and it's funny because once you open yourself up to that, I get songs every single day that come into my head. Now you can only kind of manage so many of them and to get them out there, but it's almost like your obligation to just do it and put it out there, and just not even because you're looking for anything to happen from it, but it's just like you got to give it birth some kind of way and get it out there.
I think it's very powerful that you create something, and you've been creating things for decades, and it's kind of your legacy in a way.
It is. And thank you to the library for recognizing legacies.
You're welcome.
So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get Mina to join us tonight. So that's anyway.
Now, one of the other characters we're looking at there in the Skeptics Snollygoster record is we got Steve up in the corner, and Andy's got his head down in the bottom, but that's Dennis Crowley up on the top there, and he's kind of I'm not going to say a recluse. He's not quite in Frederick County right now, but he did inform me he would be moving back to Frederick during that time frame of January-ish. So we're hoping that he's going to pop up for this to give his insights, because he was a very integral part of the Skeptics and one of the driving forces in that trio at the time.
We've got two songs that we wanted to play, and we'll use that as a way to go ahead and close the episode. Let's go ahead, Nick, if you don't mind, and we'll play the first song that we have, which is a Voodoo Love God song, and then we'll listen to... What is it? No, let's just listen to it for a minute. Now this is from the 45, Andy?
No, this is later, actually probably from the 90s.
From the 90s?
Yeah. But the Voodoo's kind of called as they see it. This song is everything I've tried, I always seem to fail. This is the theme of this song. So it kind of sums up a lot of what our expectations have been in the music business.
No, I love it. All right, we can go ahead and close that one, Nick. And let's go ahead and listen to this is one of the Skeptic songs, the band we were just talking about, and then we'll do a little rap about the 24th and call it a show. That's still the Voodoos.
That was the remix.
Yeah.
What would you say if everything today all went away? There's nothing you can say. What would you do if all that you knew was within you? There's nothing you can do. What would you say if there was no black or white? There wasn't any day and there wasn't any night. What would you do if there was no future past?
What'd you say?
Only the skeptic don't listen to copyright.
Right, yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
That's
That's awesome. You can go ahead and bring it down. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk about where we're at right now with the project, because this is all still evolving. The date is Saturday, January 24th. We have 6 people on the panel discussion. As of today, it's myself, Heidi, how do you say, is it Fucella?
Yeah.
Fucella. Heidi Fucella, who was part of the original series, the 2019 series. We love Heidi. Andy, Brian, and we've invited Dennis of the Skeptics.
Yes.
And Rob
Pearsall.
Pearsall, who played in many different bands. So
Subterraneans was
Subterraneans,
his
yeah.
band of that era.
and I think they're
And the
on one of
Yowie-ettes.
the compilations. And Emily, I hope that this becomes an ongoing series. I think this is an incredible opportunity, and we really appreciate you reaching out to us. And we're going to do everything that we can to make this successful.
No problem, and thank you for being willing to talk on the panel. I also just wanted to put a hype up for history folks who like to look at display cases, possibly at the library. Andy has graciously is going to let us, I think, borrow
Sure.
a couple of artifacts to fill the
I have
display.
some. We're going to be reaching out to a
Yes.
bunch of our friends.
Here's one. This is the Post Beat Press, a
Yes.
fanzine that, you could make it yourself, fold it up, it's stapled, whatever. Pat Fable made this. He did a great job. But actually here it has the family tree of the Frederick music scene pretty much through the entire 80s. So he wrote, this was dated 87, so that he's got the lineage kind of back to the earliest, maybe even dipping into the 70s a little bit, but mostly 80s bands that were in Frederick. And there's some liner notes and different write-ups about the different bands. I want to give you this, so maybe we can get some copies of it or whatever.
Yeah.
We can distribute them to people, or at least or blow up something like this,
100%.
Put it in your archive.
Oh,
Start the archive. For
I
the
have
80s with
talked
this.
to the wonderful Mary Mannix, our archivist at the Maryland Room at the Sieber Arts Library, and yes, she's given her permission for us to use the display cases to promote the program and to highlight the memorabilia from this time and
Sweet.
era. So, just from what Andy brought to our last meeting, it included zines, vinyl.
Yeah.
I would say like advertisements, really anything.
Posters.
Posters.
Flyers.
Yes. Mary and I are also working with Billy Leppertz from
The Yard Slippers.
yes, the Yard Slippers. Thank you. There's honestly
Who is also on Seven
Yes.
Arts Archives.
yes, and yes. So it was lovely talking to Billy today. We talked to Billy, and he also has a lot of memorabilia that he is also, I think, going to put towards the display as well. So it's going to be a really cool combination of eras from Frederick music history, and I'm really excited about it. The program with Billy is not set in stone yet. We're still working out the details with that, but stay tuned.
No, I think that's fantastic. Saturday, January 24th.
2 to 3:30
2 to
p.m.
3:30. Yeah.
And
Gonna
I'm
be a lot
planning
of fun.
on doing
We're
a little
gonna live
DJing.
stream it,
I'm going
so-
to do a little DJing and play some of this material from that era, at least as people come in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Warm everybody up.
No, I think
Yeah, it'll
that's
be a
great idea.
multimedia event, I believe.
Yes.
Hey, and the
Agreed.
Voodoo Love Gods are looking for a venue to play that night in Frederick. So if anybody's got anything, hit Don up.
Message Andy.
Yeah.
Me. I'll forward it. Yeah. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in and come out on the 24th. We're going to be talking about the show a couple of more times as this thing finally begins to finalize and become real. Unfortunately, a bunch of my friends, I don't want to be on that, they don't want to. I can't speak publicly. Yes, you can. If I can do it, you can do it. Everyone can speak publicly. You can be just fine. But anyway.
Hopefully they're in the audience.
Yes. I think we'll get a good turnout. Nick, you can go ahead and take us out.